Good morning, and welcome to the Community Church of Chapel Hill, Unitarian Universalist. I'm Kathy Putnam, and I'm a member of the Worship Associates Ministry here at the church. I especially want to welcome any visitors or newcomers who are with us today, and to call your attention for a special note to you on the back side of your order of service. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. I also want to welcome those of you attending online and to remind you that the hymn lyrics and all the elements and texts of the service will be displayed on the live stream screen. And for the complete order of service, including the weekly announcements, schedule, and upcoming events, the link to the PDF is in the morning church's email and on the church's website. There are just a few things to keep in mind this morning. We're masking inside on Sunday mornings as a way of striving to be a more inclusive community. All outdoor spaces are now mask optional. And in addition, the fellowship gathering in the community room is also mask optional. Our Sunday social is hosted by Rachel Rose and the Welcoming Committee. The in-person social will be held immediately following the service in the cast courtyard and the community room. There will not be an online social today, but it will return next week. If you haven't already done so, please silence any cell phones so we can maintain a worshipful experience. And now we have a couple announcements, and the first one is from Susan Spalt about World Mental Health Day.
Thank you, Kathy. This is Mental Illness Awareness Week and World Mental Health Day. Mental Illness Awareness Week is sponsored by NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, an organization aimed at replacing stigma with understanding and providing support to those affected by mental illness. That is 1 in 5 adults, 1 in 6 youth aged 6 to 17, not counting their families. When someone goes into anaphylactic shock, nobody says, well, you'd be okay if you just breathe normally. They would not assume that it is that person's fault. Yet with mental illness, which has many causes, assumptions are often made. It's the parent's fault or the person's fault. It's somebody's fault. Mental illness is hard enough to deal with without having to cope with misunderstandings caused by stigma. The mental health ministry of this church consists of church members who have experience in dealing with mental illness, who can provide confidential emotional support, information on local mental health resources, and other help as needed. The monthly peer-led Support is Contagious gatherings are for people who have mental illness in their families. We're not yet able to offer a group for those with mental illness, but we can refer people to other groups. We meet in person when we can, on Zoom when that is best. We don't offer easy answers, or even hard ones, but the group offers fellowship, understanding, and support. We also have a phone tree our members can use. Coping with mental illness is hard enough. You should not have to do it alone. Contact me, Susan Spalt, or Marion Hirsch for more information, or see me after class. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And now Diane Williams will tell us about today's Share the Plate.
Thank you, Kathy. Good morning. I'm Diane Williams with the Child Sexual Abuse Prevention Task Force, which is sponsored by Side with Love. Today's Share the Plate will benefit the Orange County Rape Crisis Center. The center provides services beyond what its name implies. It's well known for outstanding professional services to help foster a world where children can grow up happy, healthy, and safe. The center professionals support the healing process, plus educational programs for people of all ages and preventive training for families and community groups, which is exactly where we come in. Parents, religious education staff, grandparents, babysitters, we can all benefit from their training on awareness and prevention strategies, including how to talk to children, what we can do to keep them safe. The center staff has agreed to provide training for us next Saturday, October 15th, from 10 a.m. to noon on Zoom. Some of us on the task force have had the good fortune to receive the training. It was amazing. For me as a grandparent and a professional educator, it gave new meaning to the saying, "You don't know what you don't know." We invite you to stop by the Side with Love table in the courtyard after the service today to meet Lang, the Center Associate Director. Lang will be happy to answer any questions. You can sign up for the training today or use the link in our weekly announcements or our flyer. Space is limited, even though it's on Zoom, and they would like to have our total number of attendees by Thursday, October 12th, so that they can provide resource booklets. Our entire community benefits from keeping the center strong with donations for their good work, so please be generous today. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Please stand in body or spirit for our opening hymn number 40 in the gray hymnal, "The Morning Hangs a Signal."
Morning hangs a signal upon the
A century ago, a Universalist minister named Louis Fisher offered these words. Universalists are often asked to tell where they stand, he wrote. The only true answer to this question is that we do not stand at all. We move. Unitarian Universalism is a religion that changes. In truth, it's always been that way. Our forebears believed that revelation is not sealed. They said, "The Lord hath more light and truth yet to break forth out of his holy word." Today we say that our religion evolves. We say, like the title of our gray hymnal, that we are a living tradition. How do you respond to change? Do you find it exciting or exhausting? Is change something you embrace or resist? Does change stir your curiosity or evoke feelings of grief and loss? For most of us, it's probably a mixture of all of these feelings. Come, let us enter this service. Who knows how we might be changed in this hour? Come, let us worship together. You'll find the words for our chalice lighting in your order of service, and if you wish to do so, please join me in saying them. Here today, in this place and with these people, may we listen so that we can hear. May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel so that we can know. And may we know so that we can change ourselves and this world. May this chalice light our way.
right, at this time, we are going to honor those who within the past several months have made the decision to become members of our church family. Our last welcome of new members, I believe, was done at our congregational meeting in June. These new members that Rachel is about to name have taken the Exploring Membership class and understand the rights, responsibilities, and expectations of membership. And we're going to read the full list of names, knowing that some of them are coming to the 11:15 service, and some of them are here with us at 9:30.
Rowan Marshall, Alex Hollad, Kristen Trangsrud, Jeff Petrella, Jonathan Bittner, Will Hoy, Betsy Yarrison, Kathleen Correo, Carol Rogers, Harrison Gray, LaDonna Gray, Hunter Blanton, Patty Ahalt, and Bev Kowalik.
Oh, and if your name was, I read off script, if your name was just called, you should come on up forward here and join us at the front. It was my mistake. All right. You can make a line here in front of the piano.
Welcome. Welcome. On behalf of the membership committee, it is a joy to welcome you into this community of memory and hope. Each time we welcome a new member, we become something new. So we ask you, as our newest members, will you promise to walk together with us, sharing the joys and the responsibilities of membership? If so, please say we will. Members of the Community Church of Chapel Hill, Unitarian Universalist, will you welcome these people unto our congregation? Will you reach out to them in friendship, including them in our activities and fellowship? Will you be open to their unique gifts and perspectives? Will you extend a warm welcome to each of them, remembering that each of us was once a new member? If so, please say, we will. We will.
Becoming a member of this church is an important first step, but it is only a first step. I charge you new members to grow in your faith. More importantly, I charge you to find and share your special gifts with us. Ours is a shared ministry, and each of us has a crucial role to play. We need you, we need your energy, we need your ideas, and as you give generously of yourselves, we all become richer.
I better consult the script to make sure I don't mess this part up. Now what's going to happen is that Rachel is going to move down the line and present each of you with a chalice pin so that you can wear your faith on your sleeve. And then Ellie and I will follow Rachel, offering each of you an enthusiastic handshake of welcome into the church. Please remain up front so that once we've moved through the line, the congregation might applaud you.
Freely have we received gifts that minister to our needs of body and spirit, and gladly we bring to our church and its wide concerns a portion of this bounty. Today, our generosity extends beyond our walls as we give to our Share the Plate. If you wish to donate online, there's information on the church's website. There's also a QR code inside the order of service which can be read by your cell phone's camera. If you're writing a check, make it out to the church and write STP in the memo line. We'll now receive the morning offering.
Each week, we hold a time in our service for sharing the joys and the sorrows that we bring with us into this church community. It's at this time I invite you, if you've come with either a significant personal joy or sorrow, you're invited to come forward, place a stone in the water bowl, and briefly share your joy or your sorrow. Let us enter into this time of tenderness and trust. And there are some joys and sorrows this morning. Come on.
I always feel like that glass is going to crack. Okay. I'm Susan Blanchard,
Don Blanchard.
and we have 3 joys. The first joy is I stand before you crutch-free on my 2 knee replacements over the last year, and that as of yesterday, I officially took back my last chore, the evening dishes. So I know that my wonderful caregiver here is delighted that I'm fully back. The second joy is that all these vaccines were developed. We got our bivalent booster on September 13th, and nobody in our family got COVID until the 20th. And so, which meant that, we were about as fully vaccinated and boosted as you could be, and we both ended up with mild cases, which, when all this started in 2020, I just knew one of us would be dead. And I'm going to cry because I'm just thrilled.
And our third joy is our anniversary. Our 42nd anniversary is this coming Tuesday, and Susan gets to go to Golden Corral.
Hello, I'm Rachel Rose, and many of you know about my significant sorrow that my mother raised me as a single mother and lived with my husband and me for most of our 24-year marriage and helped us raise our children, and who I got to become her full-time caregiver, and she died in my home. The joy of that is that I got to share this beloved community with her for 10 years. And as Reverend Thom often says, we are all unofficial members of the caring ministry, and I have seen this in action. Reverend Thom, members of the staff and of this congregation have opened their hearts and shown my family care and compassion in this very difficult time. My other sorrow is that 3 days, my mother passed on October 1st. On October 4th, my husband was in a very bad car accident where his vehicle was struck and our vehicle was destroyed, and he was hospitalized with several broken ribs, a bruised lung, and broken pelvis. The joy is that he is home and he is alive, and we have every right to be hopeful he continues to show improvement. And lastly, my joy, every new member recognition is a joy to me, because it shows that people want to be part of this faith community of shared values, and they are here to help us live our mission within and beyond these walls. Thank you.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm Bruce Payton. I'm a member of this church, and I have a celebration. My son, Jonah Chitowski, who I get up here periodically and brag on, is a sophomore at UNC, and 3 months from now will be the 2 months from now will be the anniversary of him being the star in the Christmas pageant as the baby Jesus. And I've gotten up every year or two and said something about him. He's in the biomed program at UNC and getting a 4.0, and he just made the JV basketball team. And Larry here was a 3-year coach of him in Carborough Rec. And it's more than that. It's the path. It's the resilience. He hung up his shoes after his sophomore year in basketball in high school, and after a miserable experience, and then just kept playing. Got to UNC, lifted weights, hung out with the right people, and got better and better and bigger. And at 6'2" and a lot more muscle, he's, Dad, I'm playing college basketball. I'm going to be playing in the Dean Dome. Yeah.
I'm Deborah Klinger, and this is a stone of sorrow. A dear, dear friend of mine, Edna Goldstaub, died 2 Sundays ago. She was diagnosed back in May with pancreatic cancer and told that if the chemo worked, she'd have a year. And she didn't make it that far. I had come back from a retreat with COVID, and I couldn't see her, and she died on the Sunday, and her funeral was on Tuesday. She's Jewish, so they had to do it quickly, but it was graveside, so I could go. And she leaves behind, so she has a child, 2 kids, but one is a year younger than my child, and we live in the same neighborhood, and they had ridden the school bus together starting in kindergarten, and I've known her for many years. She's also a therapist, so we shared that professionally, and we'd slowly grown closer and closer and closer and spent a lot of time together during COVID. Please keep her family in your thoughts.
Good morning. I'm Dave Salmon. On Monday last week, I had surgery done, and my doctor wisely decided that I was in the 10% of people who should stay overnight. So I spent a restful night at the Alamance Regional Hospital in Burlington and got out Tuesday morning and came home. My doctor, the nurses, our PA, everyone in the surgery center and hospital were wonderful, and everyone's been great helping me at home. It'll take a couple of months to see if everything the surgery was supposed to do was successful, but I'm really happy to be here today, and I made this my 6-day recovery goal to be here this morning, and here I am.
A final stone is placed for all the joys and sorrows that we hold in our hearts, which were not spoken. I would invite you, as we enter into a time of prayer, I'd invite you to open your gray hymnal to number 123 and to hold it in readiness. We'll have a time of spoken prayer and then silent, and then we'll sing together. Spirit of life, source of our being and our becoming, we hold in our time of meditation this morning the joys and the sorrows of this congregation. We hold our struggles and our sadnesses. We hold those grieving the loss of a loved one. We hold those in our community facing illness or injury. And pray for them that their road of recovery might be swift. We hold with gratitude all those who reach out with cards and with meals and with smiles and with understanding and with tears. When one of us knows grief or turmoil. We give thanks as well for the joys in our midst, the resilience of our lives, the growth of our families and our spirits. And amidst all these joys and sorrows, we hold as well the pains of this world, we hold especially this morning the war and the violence which is too often present in our world. May we find in beloved community and in the depths of our spirits those roots that hold us close to each other, to the earth, and to the source of life. And may we also find those wings that set us free for joyous and divine living. Won't you hold a few moments of silence with me? I was a junior in high school, and the Gray Hymnal, Singing the Living Tradition, had just been published. And the minister invited us to sing Spirit of Life the way a parent might invite their child to eat Brussels sprouts. You don't have to like it, but I just want you to try it. We sang the hymn, and as it came to a close, there was a rustling of papers as everyone turned to the next page of the hymnal to see if there was more on the next page. One person exclaimed loudly, "Is that the whole hymn?" And the whole congregation seemed a bit stunned and confused. For all of us that day, Spirit of Life was new and strange. None of us had ever sung anything quite like it in church before. It was a strange hymn. It only had one verse. The verse didn't even rhyme. And the theology and the imagery was new to us too. We'd never sung about a spirit of life before. That just isn't how Unitarians talked. And we'd never used metaphors like roots and wings that way. I grew up Unitarian Universalist, but I grew up without Spirit of Life because the hymn didn't find its way into our hymnal and into our tradition until I was nearly out of high school. I grew up Unitarian Universalist, but I grew up without lighting the chalice. The chalice symbol was first associated with Unitarianism around 1940 or so. But UU churches didn't actually start putting physical chalices at the front of their sanctuaries and lighting them as a part of the worship liturgy until the late 1970s and early 80s. And even then, the practice spread slowly across our movement. Unitarian Universalist churches in New England were among the last to adopt the chalice. The aesthetic and theology of the New England church valued the worship space being plain and simple and unadorned. The New England church was suspicious of symbols. And I believe my childhood church added the chalice when I was away at college, and it wasn't without a bit of controversy. I grew up Unitarian Universalist, but I grew up without Spirit of Life. I grew up Unitarian Universalist, but I grew up without lighting the chalice. And I grew up Unitarian Universalist, but I grew up without the 7 principles. The 7 principles were formally adopted in 1985, but they weren't actually considered an essential part of our faith for at least another decade. I remember telling my childhood minister with great pride that I had memorized the 7 principles, only for him to respond dismissively, "Why would you want to do that? I don't even know what they are." It wasn't until the mid to late 90s, the 1990s, that Unitarian Universalists began to consider the 7 principles to be central to our faith's identity. This morning I'm talking about change, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about Unitarian Universalism as a faith that changes, or more precisely, I'm going to be talking about how being a Unitarian Universalist means belonging to a faith that changes. And I'm also going to offer a few reflections on the place of change in our lives and how we might be faithful to change, even when it's hard. It's been said, a little bit more about church though, it's been said that people tend to believe that the true and pure expression of Unitarian Universalism was however it was practiced in the particular congregation where they first became a member, and that any change to how that's done is just deviance. True story. 2011, it was both the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Unitarian Universalist Association and the 50th anniversary of the founding of the UU congregation in Kentucky that invited me to come be their featured guest preacher at their worship service celebrating their 50th anniversary. So I flew to St. Louis and I preached the service, and in the receiving line after the service, up to me walked a woman who must have been among the oldest people in that congregation. And she shook my hand in the receiving line and said to me, "You know where our religion went wrong? It was when the Unitarians let the Universalists join." I hope we'll figure out that was a bad idea someday. She was still resisting a change that had happened 50 years ago. Dear Lord, help me. Help me, God, to be open to change. Change has always been with us, a part of our religious tradition, just as it's always been with us, a part of our lives. Our religious changes have brought us from Christian to transcendentalist to humanist to postmodern. And change has always been with us. Our religious forebears, way back in the 1500s and 1600s, they were into change. In 1620, before the Pilgrims climbed aboard the Mayflower, their minister, who was too old and infirm to make the voyage, preached a parting sermon to them. John Robinson said, "For I am very confident the Lord hath more truth and more light yet to break forth from his holy word." There is more truth and light yet to break forth. Go forth in change. And what a long, strange trip it's been. This embrace of change, I cannot help but think, is also why our movement was ahead of every other religious tradition in embracing women's religious leadership, ahead of every other religious tradition in welcoming lesbian and gay and bisexual people into congregations and into leadership, and ahead of every other religious tradition in welcoming trans and genderqueer and gender fluid people into congregations and into leadership. And none of this is to say that any of these changes, whether they've been theological changes or liturgical changes or bylaw changes or changes to who is included when we say we, none of this is to say that any of these changes happened easily or unanimously or without resistance. It's also to say that sometimes change is just hard, and that change can provoke us in weird ways. It's funny to me that sometimes a congregation can go out in the streets and protest and shout about the need to change every injustice in society, to reorder the world as it is, and then come back on Sunday morning and have conflict over the announcements policy. Or that the church kitchen was painted a different color. Everything must change, we say, but not that. And not that. Oh, and not that. There's even a funny saying that I see posted on Facebook from time to time. Ministers graduate from divinity school ready to change the world, and then they find out they can't even change the order of service. There's a lot of places to go with change. It's such a big topic. There's all sorts of questions. Is it possible to really change as an individual? How do we change ourselves? Is it possible to change someone else? Is that even possible? What's the most effective way to go about effecting social change, or political change, or economic change, or cultural change? How do we work for that change effectively? Why is change sometimes easy? And why is it often so very, very hard? But this morning I'm focusing on just one aspect of change, one small slice and sliver. I've spent a lot of time talking about churchy changes, but reality is that change is a part of life. We live in a changing world, and things around us change. And what are the strategies? What should our strategies be for either embracing change or being open to change, or at least being resilient in the face of change? How should we be when things change? I think there are a couple strategies for this. One way to be open to change is to get curious about it, to engage it. You don't have to like it, but I expect you to try it. That goes for Brussels sprouts and Spirit of Life. And so there is, when things are changing, there is that ability to just be curious about change. I remember that there was actually, unrelated to this sermon entirely, there was a Facebook conversation about Brussels sprouts on our church Facebook page the other day. And people were saying whether they liked it or not. And one person said, I never liked it, and I tried it in all these different ways, and then I tried it in another way, and I fell in love with Brussels sprouts. So it's to engage with curiosity. Another way to be open to change is to ask about trust. There's a hymn in our hymnal about change that has these words. It says, ours is a freedom that reveres the past, but trusts the dawning future more, and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. And I love that image of trusting the future. I believe it was Adrienne Marie Brown who said that groups need to move at the speed of trust. When there is not trust, when there is no baseline of trust, every change is going to be seen as a threat. But the more you can establish trust with someone or trust with the universe, you're more likely to embrace change. So be curious about change. Try to find trust, or ask where there is something that you can trust. And finally, know that change keeps going. It sometimes feels like in life, by the time I adjust to something new, that thing that's new is on its way to becoming old and something else even newer has taken its place. And I can find that as either aggravating or as humorous, as joyful, as something that keeps me on my toes. So be curious, find trust, and find humor in the changes. With that, I conclude the sermon and say amen and blessed be. And I invite us to sing our closing hymn of the morning. It is a hymn about being open to change even though we know not what is going to happen. It is number 1020 in the Teal hymnal, Woyaya. And I invite you to sing in body or in spirit.
And you get
The words, you can remain standing, the words for extinguishing the chalice are in your order of service. Please join me in saying them if you wish to do so. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Now let's thank everyone who made this service possible, including the choir. In keeping with COVID protocols, if you're comfortable holding your hands out, go like this, and if not, cross them over your chest while we sing Shalom. Shalom, my friends, shalom, my friends, shalom, shalom. We'll meet again, we'll meet again. Shalom, shalom.